I was just standing there with my teacher. We didn't really know what was going on, but once we saw the students running, then I started to think, like, what's happening? And then I heard the gunshots, and I was like, oh my God, I just ran.
I heard 6 shots, loud shots. Right after I heard that, I was like, oh my God, we gotta go. So I started running as fast as I can.
All the kids came inside the rooms and everything. There were teachers pulling us in and telling us to, like, get in the rooms and be quiet.
This is oh, what a joy. Oh, it's such a joy and everything. I just hope all the other kids are okay, and oh my God.
But at least 17 students and teachers were not okay. Yesterday's school shooting in Parkland, Florida, left at least 17 people dead and 14 others injured. Authorities say shots began ringing out at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School shortly before students were supposed to be dismissed for the day. The gunfire reportedly began about 2:30 in the afternoon as fire alarms started going off. Florida Senator Bill Nelson told MSNBC it was the shooter who pulled the alarm so kids would come out into the hallways and he could shoot into the crowd. Nelson said the shooter wore a gas mask and had smoke grenades. When deputies arrived at the school, hundreds of students were already fleeing. According to the Broward County Sheriff's Office, the suspected 19-year-old shooter concealed himself in the crowd and was among those who were running out of the school. The Sheriff's Office says 15 victims died at the school. 2 more died at the hospital, and right now investigators are working to identify all of the victims. Welcome to Morning Joe. It is Thursday, February 15th, and Joe, here we are again.
Mika, here we are again. You know, more than 33,000 people are killed by guns in the United States every year. That's according to the CDC, 33,000. We've had 1,607 mass shootings since Sandy Hook, when we said never again. And in schools, where we send our children every day to learn, 430 people have been shot in school shootings since Sandy Hook. And if you want to take it beyond our children being gunned down in schools, well, 3 of the 10 deadliest shootings in U.S. history have come in the last 5 months. Let me say that again, because this is an epidemic that's growing. 3 of the 10 deadliest shootings in the history of the United States of America have come in the last 5 months. 15 of the 20 worst mass shootings in U.S. history have occurred since the turn of the century and the Columbine school shooting in 1999. And the 5 worst mass shootings have all occurred since 2007. I'll say it again. The 5 worst mass shootings in U.S. history have occurred in this past decade. 3 of those 5 were in 2016 and 17. And you know, Mika, we've been talking an awful lot about Vietnam lately. Unfortunately, we're looking back 50 years later. We're looking at the Ken Burns documentary. We're looking at the carnage. We're looking at the people still impacted by those deaths. And yes, we Americans are still haunted by the 58,000 Americans who lost their lives needlessly in Vietnam. And yet, more than 58,000 Americans will be killed by guns before the end of next year. Let me say that again. More people will die in America by guns this year and next than died in a decade in Vietnam. And yet, Congress does nothing. The president does nothing. Washington does nothing to protect our children from this continued madness and protect the rest of us from this insanity. Mika, I'm sorry, but just saying we can do nothing is not enough. Americans must do something, and it's not just gun control measures that most Americans support. Over 90% of Americans believe we need enhanced background checks to keep guns away from those who are mentally ill, to keep guns away from terrorists. 95% want increased background checks on gun buyers. And you know what, Mika? That includes me. I'm going to be buying guns, shotguns, for my children. A lot of people do that. They go out hunting. They go out target practicing. It's a way of life. But here's the biggest kick, Mika. Here's the kicker to it all. That people that have grown up with guns around them like you and like me and all of my friends in Pensacola think the NRA has become extreme and want their schools to be safe, just like we want our children's schools to be safe. But the NRA that we grew up with, that NRA is no longer interested in protecting gun rights. They're interested in promoting gun sales. I'm all for gun rights. I'm for the Second Amendment. I believe it means what it means. I think Americans should be able to have handguns, should be able to have shotguns. I don't want the government regulating that. I'm even uncomfortable with state carry laws. That's how much I disagree with a lot of people in the audience. But the insanity that we have seen has to be curbed, and it has to be stopped. And don't tell me that you need military-style assault weapons to protect your home or to go hunting. You do not. And this madness must stop, and these background checks have to be enhanced.
And these real conversations and the real story of what happened yesterday has to be told. I'm looking at our esteemed list of guests today, and I don't mean to unbook the show, but I'm just going to warn anybody and everybody that if anybody comes on this show and says now is not the time to talk about this and try and look forward to something constructive, then why don't you just get in your car and go back home? Because we are going to talk about this. We're going to show the chilling scenes. We're going to tell the horrific stories. But we're also going to talk about how to move this conversation forward and what needs to happen in Washington, finally. With us on.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.